What up, guys? Welcome to episode 1 of the Executive's Playbook. And considering this is the first episode, before I announce who my first guest is, I am going to take some time to just kind of explain exactly what the show is about. And what it's about is basically that I have tried a multitude of different podcast ideas, and I've gone the political route. It isn't really what I like to do. It's very negative. I'm not somebody that has a political background. I mean, I've done some things like, speaking in front of the House of Representatives and so forth, but I've never been a politician. I'm not like somebody with a degree in political science. So a lot of people maybe feel like that really isn't, like I'm not qualified to talk about that. I'm not a lawyer. I can't break down the laws of that stuff. So a lot of the things that I'm passionate about don't necessarily mean that they should be something that I podcast about. But something that I am knowledgeable about that can't be argued is that I am an executive. I am the president and CEO of Kane Publications. I have turned my company into a $2.5 million business. We sell advertisement nationwide. You could argue in some cases globally. I have multiple publications. One of them, and our most successful one, is a national publication, Food and Travel Magazine. And I've been running this business now for, going on close to 6 years. And when I took it over, it was not doing so well. And I managed to turn it around. And I have a long and storied history in business. And you guys will learn a lot about my story as we go down the line, video after video. But the real truth about this channel is that I do not want to come off like I'm a qualified expert on any subject. I am a forever student. I want to learn. And even as successful as some might say that I am, given where I started, I do not feel like I'm somebody that, knows everything. There's so much out there that I still have to learn and want to learn. And so I wanted to make the channel less about me, more about my journey of all the different people that I'm going to talk to and that I have met and will meet through various connections, that I'll be able to bring on the show and be able to have really good quality conversations about incredibly important subjects. Everything ranging from business and economics to, education, science, the things that really matter in our world, but also, maybe some things political, but more or less how political affects people on a day-to-day basis, and certain decisions that other people are making, and maybe how they affect our money, our finances. And also I want to talk about fatherhood, what it's like to be a father. I have an 11-year-old son, and trying to balance running a business and being an entrepreneur with being a father is a very difficult endeavor. And so there's a lot I'd like to ask, guests on how they manage to pull that off. If females come on and their mothers, how they do it. But yeah, so I want this show to be uplifting. I want this show to be something that people can learn from. And the truth of the matter is that I came from a very horrible background where I had a mom who was a drug addict, a prostitute who, yes, sold herself for money. And I grew up in an apartment that was, or different various one-room efficiencies and things like that when we weren't homeless, that were much like a brothel or a drug house, people getting high, doing drugs, crack cocaine and various drugs and substances in my home where I lived. And of course, various women coming and going and doing things. My mother would, it was a whole thing. But given how I grew up and where I'm at now, it's been quite a journey, and I really consider myself incredibly blessed. And that's the truth. I just do. So that being said, I want to have an outlet to be able to interview and speak to incredibly successful people, smart people, people who are experts at their subjects, and really just try to be able to deliver information to people that really want to hear it. That's why it's called the Executives Playbook, not just because, I'm an executive and this is going to become sort of, each interview in each episode will become sort of a playbook to my life and the information that I learn. But all you, other executives out there, are people that are entrepreneurs, or people that are maybe in a situation where you don't have any money or any sort of access to capital, and you want to start a business or you want to do something successful with your life. I want to be able to create content that you'll be able to watch and be able to learn from, hopefully through the conversations that I have with incredible people, and be able to apply some of these things to your own life and hopefully better your life. So that's what this show is about. That's all it is. I want to learn. I want you to learn. And maybe from the these various conversations, we'll both learn together. We'll go on a fantastic journey of learning incredibly valuable information from incredibly important people, successful people, people that are experts on the subject. So that's what the show is about. Now, my first episode is going to be interviewing a film director in Hollywood by the name of p.m.lipscomb. This is a guy that is a self-taught film director. He literally taught himself everything he knows about lenses, about technology of the camera, about lighting, about everything that he needed to know. He didn't go to a school. He is a self-taught film director. He has spent the last 19 years making films. And he's done, I believe, over 38 shorts and 3 features, and he's working on a 4th feature now that is a documentary about I'm not going to give anything away, but it's about a very well-known painter. And he's done some things. He has the features that he did. One of them is out. It's called Clowning. You can watch it. It's on Tubi. He has an amazing short called Hunger, and another one called Outcry that is another incredible movie that features Mike Starr and Dashiell Connery from Tulsa King. You guys might know him from. And Mike Starr is known from Goodfellas. He's filmed all over the world. He's won like 12 film awards. Yeah, I mean, and also another thing that is really interesting about him is during COVID, he taught himself how to make video games. As something to do when everybody was stuck in the house. So a really, really profound guy, a wellspring of information in terms of working in the film industry in Hollywood. And so that's going to be episode 1, p.m.lipscomb. Let's go. Let's get it started. What's up, Patrick? How you doing, man?
Very good, very good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very happy that you agreed to do this. I basically have decided recently that my show has been more about politics and lately, and and I've been kind of going down this rabbit hole of reporting all this negative news on a regular basis, and it's been so draining and exhausting. And what I originally started a podcast for when I started it in the first place was because I just feel like I've been fortunate in my life to meet some of the most incredible people. And the quote, like, if I've seen further, it's from Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. It's like, I feel like the reason why I've had any success at all in my life is because I've always had the luxury of just meeting some of the most incredible people who have been wizards at this life, and basically that I learned from. And so I wanted to go into a direction of the show where I just interviewed these people, and my gift to the world right now is to just introduce to the world all these amazing people that I've met, and you being one of them, of course. So that's why I'm super excited that you decided to do this. So for starters, I want to get into, you have an amazing story. You come from the land of Ohio, and I would like to know, and I'm sure the audience would too, what is it that, when did it click for you that you wanted to be a filmmaker? Like, what put you on this journey? Was it a specific movie? Was it like, you were working on something and it clicked? Like, what was that moment that made you go, I want to make movies?
Well, let's see. So April 23rd, 2006 was the day that I devoted my life to making films. And I had had a dream. It's so funny. It's 19 years ago, and I just haven't really like thought about it too heavily recently. But I had a dream, and I told my roommate the dream that I had, and it was kind of like a Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, kind of hybrid of chaos. And his response was, "You should make films. You should make movies." And I had never thought about it before that moment, and just immediately dove head first right in, started writing dialogue, had never, even thought about how could this be orchestrated, how do you write, and so really I just kind of fell in love with the concept of making a project and all the different facets that come with building something so large, where you have to plan out this. I mean, the writing of a screenplay is a large endeavor. And then on top of it, then building that project and bringing it to fruition. There's nothing like seeing images of something that you thought about a long time previous, and then suddenly you conjure them out. But I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and started making movies there, and really had made a ton of short films and had even shot a feature film before I knew the difference between a short and a feature. I had actually done some casting, where I casted an individual as the lead of that feature film called Marked. That was the first one I had made, where he was on government assistance. So the fact that he had a complete open availability made it like the perfect fit. And I just kind of conjured this tale where I filmed with him and about 50 other actors over the course of like 3 or 4 months. And then I was and then showed it at the local cinema for a little bit of time. And at some point, once I was a couple feature films into working in Cincinnati, there was just a moment where it kind of clicked, like I could be here forever and build an audience here and keep making things and showing them in the local cinemas. Or I can go out to the West Coast and see if something accumulates out there. And then hopped on a train, went to San Francisco.
When was that? What year? Do you remember?
That was about 8 or 9 years ago.
So all this progress you've made has all basically been made. All this like Hollywood progress you've made is all just basically in the last 8 years.
Yeah, last 8, 9 years.
Wow, that's really impressive. What you've accomplished in a short period of time.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It's crazy to think about it in that context, because when you're living life in the moment, in time, you're not really thinking about, if you're right here on the timeline and you're doing something specific, you don't really contemplate the fact that you're going to be over here at some point if you're living in the moment, but inevitably you will be over here. And so something I learned super early on was I have this post-it note in my office where it says, never have a 0% day. Always do something. As long as you take a bite out of whatever it is you're going towards, you will get there. That's inevitable because time will go by.
That's amazing. You live by that, right?
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing to like. It's an amazing thing to live by. You have successfully managed to get 2 movies distributed, Outcry and Clowning, and these movies are out there that can be watched on, I believe, several platforms at this point now, right? What was that like? I mean, what was it like to finally to see that, like, you've reached this moment where almost like an acceptance feeling, like Hollywood finally said, yeah, this guy has talent and we're going to take these movies and put them where the world can see them. What was that? Tell me about that.
Well, the first project that got financed was clowning. And when you're back in Cincinnati, Ohio, I used to work at a preschool. When I was back there, like working and imagining writing something and somebody saying, here's 6 figures, go make this thing, you think that there's all these feelings and things that are attached to it. You imagine this idea of like, once you step into that hemisphere, you'll feel something. And so, but here's the truth. Here's what really took place. So, I wrote a script, a scary movie that's not made yet, and that was being passed around to different individuals who are reading it quite a bit. And the producers who are attached to it, they weren't introducing me to the financiers. But at that point, I hadn't made a movie with a budget. So people were kind of like nervous. And then if you don't get to meet the personality and like, where's the thing coming from, there is always this standoff kind of nature. So I started writing clowning. And so as I was writing that picture, I talked to my uncle who lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and I asked him if he knew any entertainment attorneys out there because I had this horror film going. And I asked them because all the entertainment attorneys here in LA, they all cost a specific dollar amount, and so I was trying to find something a little bit less expensive out in the world, and he asked around and dug up this one individual who also happened to be an executive producer. And when I spoke to that guy about him just representing me as an entertainment attorney, he asked if I had anything I was writing outside of that other venture because he'd like to read something I was currently writing. So I sent him clowning. And by Sunday, he had read it. I sent it to him like on a Friday. And by Sunday, he wrote me this giant email about how he loved it and wanted to try to find the money for it. So he went out, found that money, and the money, lets us. I'm jumping ahead of certain elements here, but here's like the big picture side of this. But
I mean, it seems it's really a lot of complexities, so it's totally fine. It's interesting.
well, one of the big things is as he was looking for money, before he landed the budget for the picture, there was somebody who offered $250,000 for me to replace the lead actor, who was a really close friend of mine. I had made multiple movies with him in Ohio, and the film was even based on part of his life. And it was crazy because it would have put 100 grand in my pocket. I could have made the movie for 150. But in that moment, I just said no, thank you. I need to make the picture with my friend as the lead because it's based on and the movie's really a film about friendship and it's something kind of putting a cap on this beautiful creative path that him and I were on together back in Ohio, leading out here.
Yeah, it seems almost karmically the wrong thing to do. I mean, like
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, it would have given us a certain amount of money to try to get a more of a name individual who maybe could have helped sell that picture. But as I said, no, thank you to that, the EP tried to walk away. We were on the phone together and he was like, well, I did everything I could. I haven't found you money within, fastest I've ever found money before because it was only a couple of weeks that he went out to try to find it. And I was like, listen, I can make this movie for anything. Could be, 50,000, 80,000. I can make it for any amount of money. I was like, trust me, you're going to want to do this with me. We're going to make this picture. And he was like, well, maybe there's a couple more people I could call. And so he called some people and he turned out about 180,000 around about is what that movie was made for. Um, And here's the crazy thing. Once the money was transferred, right? I'm this guy from Cincinnati, Ohio, originally born in Hamilton. My dad was a third generation paper mill worker. And I say these elements because we get the money in the bank account, and then I suddenly get an email from SAG telling me that the film will not be able to be produced through SAG And at this point, I already have a number of name actors who are attached to the project who have been casting, and they had gone through my Instagram, and they had come across. I was working in a rental house at the time, and they came across a still of a character who's a clown on my Instagram, and tried to say that we were backdooring the movie in to SAG and trying to pull a quick one on them. And I mean, my heart was shattered at the moment, because we had just gotten this money. It's my first opportunity to make a movie, and the truth is, and the big picture of things, I wrote this giant email back. I sent it to everybody in SAG, all the people that I could find, all their emails, presidents, whoever, and they overturned it. They allowed us to make the movie with SAG. Everything ended up working out in that area, and that was at the end of 2019. So then we're in post production, and COVID starts.
Mm.
Yeah, and so, we had to make the movie through COVID, and so getting distribution for that picture was very difficult because we couldn't really find an avenue, a stage to show it at the beginning of COVID because everything was closing down. So to get the picture distributed felt unbelievable because it finally came out in 2022, and I just wanted those people to get their money back. I wanted it to, get out into the world. You never want to take somebody's money and not, get the
Yeah.
thing.
Well, I think too, like if I remember correctly, like I mean, it did seem like 6 months or so, even a year or so after COVID hit, that things sort of in terms of policies and like how you had to do things on set and the rules and all that stuff, they kind of got flushed out by then. But if you were right in the middle of making a movie when it happened, I mean, it must have been complete chaos because no one, I think, right in the beginning really knew like what you can do, can't do. Like that must have just threw everything into a total tailspin, I would imagine,
It was a chaotic time.
Yeah, it was. That's crazy. Um, Here's an interesting question. Now that you have two movies out, and you are working on a documentary right now about Rob Pryor, and there's a lot of excitement around that. Has it changed the way people are talking to you, old friends? Are people looking at you or treating you differently in the way that they approach you now, like people that you've known for years before some of this recent success happened? Are you experiencing that?
No, I don't think so.
No?
The truth is, I'm such a recluse. I'm literally just working on things nonstop. So I'm not talking to a lot of people super often, and I need to alter that part of my existence. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so.
No?
I think that I think in life we're all so aware of our own trials and tribulations, that I don't know. I mean, people are just living.
And well, you came out here, like you said, San Francisco 8 years ago,
Mhm.
and it seems like, 8 years is not a very long time. And I think in the overall scheme of things, it's not. But it does seem that on a technological front, 8 years ago seems like 1,000 years ago in terms of like all of the things that have changed from the way the film industry used to be to the way it is now. I mean, it went from, MGM being a big studio to like Amazon Prime being like, and Netflix owning all the film studios, and tech companies sort of took over social media, like all these things. Now it's like movies are being affected by, like actors are going into trial for movies and they care more about how many people you have, following you and stuff. In what ways have you been affected, either positively or negatively, by all of these sort of tech changes that happened in this industry since you came in? I mean, does it feel like an entirely different world now than it was 8 years ago when you first started to journey, down this road?
You know, Honestly, I feel like So the film I'm working on currently called Devoted in Time. It's experimental documentary that I'm shooting entirely on my Bolex camera from 1962. It's this old leather steel wind up camera, can only do a 28-second shot at a time. Every roll of film is 3 minutes of shooting. The reason I'm saying this stuff is the world is moving at a particular speed, but I think the journey of being an artist is to not pay too much attention to what's happening outside of your own inspiration. Because inevitably there's so much talk, so much loud noise happening all the time through the chaos of the world that it leaks into you, regardless if you want it to or not. And so I feel like creating the art takes precedence over paying attention to all the different ways of creation. So, like, there's different times where an idea will hit me and I'll be like, I want to make it this particular way. And then I just push on that. So, like, when it comes to like studio turnover or all the different avenues, and look, it wasn't that I thought this way forever in the very beginning. It's really more so the acceptance that your film might be viewed on a phone, on a laptop, you know, um, of course you want it to be viewed in a theater or in, a traditional setting, but at some point you just kind of got to understand in your own head the idea of like just make the thing and then remember it's going to be viewed in 100 years in some chip that you put into your forearm and then it plays right here. I mean, who knows how images will be perceived
It's so
at
true.
some
I
point.
know. It's so true.
So as I dive into this older technology, as I go into like editing longhand and projecting images and thinking about, one thing that I always think about with images, which don't have to do with the external velocity of opportunity, is I like the theoretical concepts like 1 + 1 = 3, where one image cut together with another image will create a third image in the viewer's mind. And so that to me is something I'm always wanting to explore further in the context of can I predict what images built together might put into a viewer's mind? And then if you're able to predict that, if you're able to have an idea of what you're doing with those images, how can you apply that idea to narrative films? How can
Right.
you bring that theoretical concept into a drama or into something? Um, but the experimental documentary, that kind of genre and landscape, I mean, there's so much versatility. If anybody wants to understand more about that genre, they should watch Ben Rivers or Nathaniel Dorsey or some of these experimental filmmakers that could really take them down a beautiful rabbit hole.
You know, there's some people that start the process of an idea with filmmaking, especially that their initial concept is, wow, this idea would make money. This is a huge idea. This could be a hit movie or like whatever. And that's the at the forefront of their thinking. And then there's those people that are so more about the art and culture of filmmaking that how it's going to make money or how successful that film will be is the last thing that's on their mind. But it seems to me that, or at least there have people that have suggested to me in the past that there needs to be a balance where you have to be able to come up with that sort of art. You have to come from a place of art, but with the understanding of how a movie could sell. But I kind of always been of the view, or at least it has felt to me, that it's the people that create because they just want to make art without caring how it's going to sell. Those movies somehow accidentally do great. And then once they do, everybody else is like, oh, that's a formula now that sells. And so I don't know, it's kind of like hard to explain what I'm saying, but like, how do you view that? Like, is there a process to you on how to make a movie that has the potential for success while not squelching the art of it, or are you of the mindset of I'm just gonna make art and I'm not gonna care about any of that stuff, and if it does great, it does great. Like where are you on that? Like I'm, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think what drives the concepts that come out of me, it's probably altered at different points because I've been making films for 19 years and thinking about it throughout that period of time, and I'm sure it's gone left, right, up, and down. But for me, I think a lot of times, honestly, I think an image pops in my head. I think something kind of hits in my head, and I think, oh, that's intriguing. Like recently, I thought about this idea of just opening on this brutal murder and this guy just killing the hell out of this other guy. And then suddenly he wakes up, the guy who is killing the other one. And the first line he says is something like, I'm gonna find you, something like that. And that image popped in my head the other day, and I was like, oh, it's really interesting. Like, what if then we cut to the guy who's gonna be killed at the end, and we just were with him the rest of the time? And then we saw this guy later, kind of in the background, stalking him. But then maybe there's an idea where there's a turn of events, and he has a change of heart, and maybe in the end he doesn't kill him.
Mm.
But it's just something that's like a short idea. With this said, I feel like no matter how somebody might want something to be commercial or something to be viewed, right? Projects are so big. They're so time consuming. Making a full feature length movie, even with hardly any equipment and very few people, still would probably take nearly a year or, a chunk of time, you know. So and then let's say it's successful. Then you're going to talk about it for another year or two as you're like traveling the festival circuit or whatever, wherever the film goes. So it's like, I feel like I have to be so excited about what I could learn from the thing.
Hmm.
Like I'm in the middle of writing a screenplay with the gentleman Bronson Pinchot, who was Balky in Perfect Strangers, and is a great actor. But
You worked with him on Clowning.
I'm clowning, yeah, yeah, clowning, and that idea came to me because I had a dream, and we had made a movie in the dream, and I called him and I was like, "Hey, we should make a movie." But now that movie is going to be about fathers. And there's something so personal that suddenly came out of this. And it wasn't like there wasn't like the idea first. The idea was I want to write something with him because working with him in clowning, he was so remarkable. He had such a quality about him. I loved him in True Romance and so many different performances that he's given over the years.
Yeah.
And but now that idea is so meaningful to me. There's something that we're conjuring about fatherhood that I want to explore on an intimate level. So there's never been a thought in that process of, will this be commercial? Will this go left or right? It's really just been following the trajectory of maybe the heart or the ego or the gut instinct. It's, and hopefully it becomes something beautiful. Hopefully it does something. I don't know, I think that through making films for much time, horror films, scary movies brought me into filmmaking in the context of, with a scary movie, filmmaking is kind of on the level. It's on the
Mm.
surface. The person in your head did not get killed. So there's some kind of filmic technique that made it work. So I started going into filmmaking that way. And then slowly you start to learn all the different parts of making a movie, camera, editing, so many techniques. But now I feel after three features and all the other things, I'm at the point where I'm really just more interested and curious about the singular moment and how it alters the emotional stability of a human
Mm.
and why is that altered? And so it's like I'm excited to go into these new pictures because I feel like as I advance and go, also too, going into experimental documentaries was a big mind-changing thing, because at one point you're thinking about the shot in a particular way, and then you're like filming a statue for a particular purpose with a particular film stock for it to be cut together with another thing for specific reason. And it's like then going into writing a screenplay, your head is just you're not thinking like you used to, with story and purpose. We have so little time on the planet.
True.
So little time. We never know when the end will be, or what that will be. And so I think with that, it's like I consistently always keep myself going forward on the next venture,
At
you
this
know.
point, have you ever shot? Have you ever shot? Or what is that one? I'd love to hear this. What is the one singular shot on anything that you've worked on that you have done that when you looked at it in post and you looked at that shot, you were like it was like a crowning achievement. It was like the moment in your career where you really were like, oh, okay, I'm here. I'm doing like this. This shot was like absolutely brilliant. Like, were you even surprised yourself? Do you have that one shot?
You know what? I'll just give you the first shot that hit me right then is the opening shot of the short film Hunger.
I've seen Hunger.
Yeah, you've done the music for Hunger.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So,
but that opening shot of Hunger, there was something in the moment to tell the tale really quick. Basically, we were I was producing these live shows and I had access to a camera, and the camera was sitting at my apartment. And I thought to myself, I really want to use it. I want to make something with it while I have access to it. Because it was a red and it, would have been a 500 to $800,000 or 500 to $800 rental package. Anyways, um, I just wrote a really quick page or two, and then I contacted Speed Ratliff, my boom operator, and somebody, Genesis Orego Sorto, and was like, "Hey, I want to film a scene," and we just did some improvisation. And when I had the camera down next to this suitcase with a dead body in it, this fake dead body, Speed being down next to this body, there's just a moment where I directed him. I said this direction to him, and he had a little sudden turn in his head. And he just gave this performance out of nowhere. This boom operator just blew my mind in this moment, where he started making out with the dead body. So go see the movie Hunger, and you'll see
yeah,
what.
I am of the mindset. I've told you this before, and I'll say it again. I really believe that Hunger is a masterpiece, and it's not because I did the music for it. I wanted to do the music for it because I thought it was a masterpiece. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's like the movie, or the short, we'll call it, I guess. The I don't even know if you'd even the experience that you created. It feels like, what's the word I'm trying to think of. It makes you feel when you watch it as closed in as reality does. Like, people are always trapped in the 6 inches in front of their face. They get up, they look at their apartment walls, they go to the same kitchen, they go and sit down on the couch, they whatever, they put their shoes on in the same place. Everything is just their life in front of them. The phone calls they have to make, the business they're running, the job they have to go to work to. And we get trapped in these sort of like bubbles, and sometimes even the smallest problems in our lives seem like the biggest because we just can't see outside of our small little bubble. And that was like, Hunger really captures that bubble. Like, it really makes you feel like when you're watching it, like it's extremely close to reality because you're feeling the bubble of these two characters, both of them. You're feeling like how they both have such small worlds, and you're inside that small world, those small worlds. Like, and it feels so relatable to like most ordinary people's reality that I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but it really encapsulates that. It's phenomenal.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Something that's exciting about that picture is it's like what, like 20 minutes, and I think it's only between 12 and 20 shots.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very few shots for the whole 20-minute movie.
I think the
Because I feel
opening
like
scene was one shot, right? It was like a 4 minute opening
yeah,
shot
yeah, it's like a 3 or 4 minute opening shot, something like that.
without a single edit. Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
impressive.
Well, that was one thing I wanted to explore with that experience, which was create the one composition and then live in it for a little bit of time. Where, right now, if Devoted in Time, the film I'm working on, it's a completely different experience because that movie, those shots are only 28 seconds long, and I have to wind up the camera again and then shoot another 28-second shot. So that film, I feel like that going back to just filmmaking as an art. I like to come up with limitation and then live with inside it,
Hmm.
because we live in a world right now, 2025, that is almost like limitless. The amount of things you can do, the amount of things you can pursue, the amount of ways you can recreate yourself. And really, all the limits that we are up against are the walls we grew up with. So whatever bad habits, the way we get in front of ourselves and stop ourselves from going further in an activity or whatever. Everyone has this kind of, I want to do this or that. I don't really remember why I'm speaking about this particular situation,
Hmm.
but I think it had something to do with what you were saying.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought there.
That's so funny. Um, well, from a here's a question that probably a little bit more on the controversial side, but I am curious as a film director if this has affected you with everything that's happened in the last 5 to 8 years with Hollywood, with like the MeToo movement and like Harvey Weinstein and like all that kind of stuff. Has that like forced up and coming directors like you to sort of like have to really like consider a lot of things that maybe you didn't have to consider before, like whether not just on a professional, obviously on a professional level, but just like who you're hiring or like what what type of like how you would go about the process of filmmaking without putting anyone in any sort of precarious positions. Like, is that adding an extra layer of difficulty, or does it feel like the problem has sort of been made? I mean, obviously those problems were severe issues, but they're not as frequent or as like a much of a concern as people would think.
Hmm. Well, I believe that pretty much everybody I've worked with would probably say this, but ever since the very beginning, I've always had the thought that the producers are in charge of the production. If somebody dies, it's the producer's fault.
Mm.
In the context of you're building an environment, you're bringing people together, you're making choices. Like in all my film sets, I wouldn't want to be alone with anyone specifically. I wouldn't want, anybody in any kind of like stressful situation. I was even making a movie called The Monster Within a long time ago back in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I had to shut the production down first day of shooting because I had realized the house that we were shooting in, the building, wasn't safe. And it was in a very unsafe part of Cincinnati at that time, downtown in the city. And so I just immediately knew. And at that point, I'm maybe 20, 21, 22. And so, I mean, I'm glad that people are being held accountable And I think people should be held accountable if you make people feel poorly about, any, I don't know. I mean, it's creating is vulnerability. Creating is vulnerability. I wouldn't date an actress. And the reason I wouldn't date an actress is because I want the people I work with to know that we're building something and hopefully we'll be vulnerable together.
It's a different relationship.
It
Yeah.
is. It is, I mean, I'm not sure how everybody builds the thing that they build, but at the end of the day, you're together in this kind of situation where you want somebody to tell you their intimate secrets and, sexuality shouldn't really be on the table to a certain degree, in my opinion. And then also, even more importantly, if you take that out of the equation, also feeling anxious about speaking or asking questions, or, because there's a lot of different sides of a personality that can kind of suppress. And this isn't just for filmmaking, this is like if you're running a company or if you're,
Yeah.
dealing with people, if you want them to feel open to talk to you. Because really, when you're making a movie, you're really just running a small company for a small amount of time and you have people on the on the what is it, like the
Payroll.
conveyor belt,
Oh, the conveyor. Yeah.
and you have to make sure that the emotions are carried all the way through. Like for instance, who you have as your grip is just as important as anybody else on set. The people who are behind the camera, they can create a certain amount of instability emotionally on set for the performers. So it's like every facet of running that company, of running that staff, of building that family is going to all be in front of the camera. Even if you don't comprehend it, the dark matter in our lives, there's some kind of emotional blanket that gets pulled over us. And so I think that's a big difference between films or theater performances or acting performances is like when something is felt so intuitively in their soul.
Have you ever personally not worked with an individual because of behavior they exhibited or some kind of way they treated people or something that you saw that raised red flags? And you don't have to say who. I'm just wondering if you ever personally experienced that.
Well, there was this one time that a an individual made a joke. He was like a producing partner. He was one of like the people we brought in at the top, and he made a joke about heroin to another producing partner, but he didn't realize that that other producing partner had had a past within heroin and had people, family, whatever attached to heroin. And so I had to, and this guy was like our senior. This is like an older producer. He's been here for forever. And I, called him up right after the call because it was a Zoom. We were all together. I called him after the call and was like, "Hey, you ever say something like that again, you're off the project." Because I mean, at the end of the day, you have to make people understand like we're here to tell a story, and I think there's an old way of kind of dealing with things in the past. I don't know. I grew up with all older sisters as well. I'm come from more of a nurturing background. So maybe just my environment is a little bit more of a nurturing kind of thing, perhaps. I don't know.
Well, I
But
mean, no, I mean, it's, there does seem to be this sort of movement. Uh, I'm not going to speculate on where it comes from or who's behind it. I'm just going to say that there is a strong movement that seems to perpetuate this idea that everyone just needs to be allowed to say what they want. People need to get over their feelings. Don't be like, who cares about being offended? Like, people should be able to say whatever they want. But I think that people don't really understand that you can't have an environment, whether it's any kind of work environment, whether it's a creative work environment, whether it's a business work environment. You just can't have a lot of people working together on something and just allow this free for all where everybody just says whatever they want and have that produce anything that is viable. Like, it's just not a reality. You know what I mean? Like, It seems like it's delusional thinking. But speaking of telling stories, you also have recently transitioned into video game development. And I have played your platformer, and it's super awesome, and it's unbelievable how fast you put this thing together. It's really difficult. It's a really difficult game to play, but it is fun. But what is the explain to me sort of like the difference? Is there in telling that story, like telling a story in filmmaking versus telling a story in video games? And is there a preference over one or the other, or to you, or are they just two completely separate mediums that both allow you to get out your artistic abilities?
Well, thank you very much for saying the positive, you know, and enjoying the platformer and enjoying the game. For me, so in 2020, when we went to the pandemic, there was a moment where there was this idea of like, oh, we might not be around each other as often. And I was producing these live events around video games for a company. And that company, we would do stuff for Madden or Fortnite or whatever. And I hadn't really looked at video games for a long time. I had played tons of games growing up, Mario, everything. And I just hadn't really like been up to speed. And so I'm sitting here watching, producing these events, watching these video games, and slowly I start to learn about the fact that game engines are available and certain things that I didn't really know existed. So during the pandemic, when we were on lockdown, I started to learn how to program and started to learn a game engine and start to do some art and stuff. And
Yeah, didn't you just teach yourself how to make video games like 2 years ago or something like that? Two or
no,
three years ago?
it started in like 2021, like at the end of 2020 into 2021, I started playing around, kind of prototyping, making little things, learning different engines. And then I made that first game and released it somewhere in 2022, 2023, somewhere in there. And that was just a short little thing on itch under the name Hiccup.
Hmm.
And then I've just so to get to the question, you know, as I got further into making a video game and realizing that it's such a fruitful place to tell a story as well, um, I used to spend a couple hours every morning just reading new essays or anything I could find on filmmaking. And so that time still exists that I still do that every day, but it's like night or later in the morning. But now I just wake up, spend a couple hours tinkering around on a video game because
Right.
the way that I look at it is this. If you're making something like a video game or a movie, you're looking to entertain people. You're looking to put them in a particular place and relieve them of the tension in their lives, which is what I wanted to do with movies. And so I just it's such a viable market as well. So and my thoughts, if I spend a couple hours every day tinkering around on this game and keep on going, eventually that'll be released. And then making movies on top of that, maybe, it can help build this income coming from creativity.
Hmm.
So there's not one that I really enjoy more than the other, to be honest with you. They're both different. I will use one to help pull me away from the other for a moment to relieve the tension in my or to some degree to fill back up the flask of creative ambition.
Hmm.
And then I'll turn around and look back at the other project I'm working on, and suddenly that flask will be full, ready to tip back over and put a bunch of effort into that. And so I would generally, what I would do in the past is I would just be writing another screenplay and then
Right.
working on a movie currently. But now that I have a stack of 8 to 9 screenplays sitting there on my desk, and working on this one of Bronson, I don't know, video games just became something, I'm not like a super avid player even. I mean, I'm not spending a lot of time playing video games. Um, but making one feels like you're playing it.
I agree. I agree.
You know, it
Yeah.
feels like you're tinkering around with it. And right now in this time period with that technology being completely available, you know, for people to try to make a game, it's the largest market. The market of video games is growing exponentially. And so I don't know, I just feel like we're in this time period, why not give it a shot? You know, why not make a thing? But I also, I mean, I love making films, and so every day I'm kind of working on both those simultaneously. You know, whether it's editing on Devoted in Time and then going into the video game and working on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's like when you're telling a story or when you think of a story idea, you kind of now have the option to be like, would this be more fun interactive or would this be more fun not interactive? Like,
Yeah.
if it's more fun interactive, let's make it a game. If it's not fun interactive, let's make it a movie. You kind of have the options,
Well,
which is kind
also
of cool.
too, I mean, when you make these films, you also have that intellectual property of the film. So there is a world too where you could make a video game based off the film,
Yeah.
have them build into one another and help promote one another. You know, I mean, so there's a lot of thoughts like that in my head as well that are like, how can these also, we live in a world where so many people have multiple screens in front of them. Generally, when they're going into playing a video game, they might, yes, they can have an extra screen there, of course, but the game, the interactive side of gameplay pulls you in. So there is a way, like, I think if you want to get to younger audiences, if you have something you want to say to the younger people in the world, a video game could be a way into that world. You know,
Right.
where, yeah, you could make a movie that could appeal to a lot of people. Um, but anyways, but just like you said, though, ideas have different fruitful trails ahead of them that they're like pulling us down.
Yeah. I have one final question for you that I'd like to ask, and that
All
is
right.
that what is your primary motivation behind everything that you do? Is it um, to be famous, to be rich, to be respected, or to be remembered? Or none of them? Like, you know, what is the thing that is the ultra driving motivation behind everything that you do?
The thing that matters are others. Inspiring others and selfless love are the greatest currencies we have.
Who
That's
said that?
Williams,
Who?
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams said that?
Yeah, yeah, Robin Williams.
Oh, that's powerful.
And so currently the way that I feel is I want to make I want to make films that have some kind of meaning that might be unlocked 100 years from now. So like I don't really care what happens today with these projects, with these films, because my head is thinking this isn't for today. It's for when I'm long, long gone and have no, you know, essence left. And also, it's like you don't even think about what it should be. Just let it be, you know? So, but to say like what runs me, what engine, what oil, what, you know, honestly, it's probably what runs everybody. I mean, the curiosity of why the hell we're here and where the hell we're going and what does it all mean, you know? And
I
I mean, I
I
think that
remember I remember you took me to a film festival
yeah.
that your movie played at. I'll never forget this. And I remember, I've never seen you so elated in my life, but I remember you coming up to me and, you know, I think you even won something at the end. And what they gave you was like I think that they just gave you like I think it was like a picture in a frame, or it was some kind of thing. But you didn't even care anything about the award or any of that. You were walking on cloud nine to me, because you kept repeating over and over again how unbelievably moved you were to stand. Because I remember you went down the aisle and you were like looking over at people while they were watching the movie, and you were like ecstatic that people were getting emotionally moved by something you created. Do you remember having that conversation with me in the movie theater at that? And it seemed like to me in that moment that you, very much like me, had a very similar desire to just move people. And that really seems to be like, you know what I mean? But that's I never forgot that. And that moment to me was when I felt like I connected with you more than ever before, because I said, this is somebody who 100% is in tune with like my vibration, I guess you could say. Like, I was like, he gets it. Like, that's the feeling. That is the feeling, is like, oh my God, I made people laugh. Oh my God, I made people think. Oh my God, I made people cry. Oh my God. Like, that is like the crack. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Or at least it seems, you know, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean, we make things for people to watch, for people to absorb, have thoughts about, so I mean, that's the hopes, how do you get to the masses? How do you get people to look at your stuff? So I don't know, I feel like I sit alone for months and months just waiting for that moment of connection. That's probably, a big driving force to everything. But
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, you were my first guest. I have 22 people scheduled. It's gonna be a lot. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot. But so because you were my first guest, I was not able to do this with you. It has to start with you. But I was wondering if you could do me a favor, and if we could end on this note. I would like for you to think about an existential question. It's not. You don't have to, it's not that deep. It's not like you need to have too much time to think about it. But I would love for you to give me a question that I can ask the next guest without you knowing who they are, without you knowing anything about them. What is a really great introspective question that you would like me to ask the next guest?
When you can't sleep at night, what thought do you try to put into your head to try to get yourself to go to sleep?
Wow. I love that. When you can't sleep at night, what thought do you like focus on to help you go to sleep?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask that of my next guest.
Amazing.
That's great. It's a great question. Thank you. But anyway, before we end, I do want to, is there anything that you would like to plug or shout out that you have, like your documentary that you have coming up, or your video game that you're going to be putting out, or anything you'd like to mention to the audience to check out?
I'll just say that follow devotedintime on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at p.m.lipscomb. Just pay attention for that picture to come out, and pay attention to my Instagram, and I'll talk about the video game at some point. Right now, it's a more of a secret project. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. That's good to know. Well, thank you, Patrick. I really appreciate you giving me the time to do this.
100%.
I'm super excited about this channel, so I really appreciate you taking the time, and I wish you the best in all your endeavors, and we really should go to lunch soon.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem.